This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Money, money, money. Must be funny in the rich man's world.
Welcome to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Thanks for being here today. Today we're in the studio and speaking live with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group Financial Services. And on the first half of today's program, it was all about considerations about retirement income planning. Some of them definitely eye-openers. And the conversation really highlighted the value of working with an experienced financial planner. So, Jim, I really like how you mentioned earlier that retirement is meant to be a reward after decades of hard work. This is something sometimes we forget or it gets lost in the conversation. And the last thing you might be thinking of after retiring is heading back into the workforce. But for some Canadians, a too small nest egg actually leaves many needing to fill that income gap. Can you expand on that?
Well, after 40 years of saving for retirement, people are left to determine how to use that money once they leave the workforce. It can leave some people feeling very uncomfortable about having to make all the right choices themselves.
Well, these days, a growing number of Canadians, we're paranoid about running out of money. It's one of our biggest fears. And increasingly worried about that day of retirement. Can you tell us why?
A recent Stats Canada study finds that almost a third of Canadians polled between the ages of 45 and 60 said their financial preparations for retirement were inadequate. Investors Group itself did a study, and it found that just 24% of non-retirees over the age of 45 were not concerned about their retirement.
Well, what does it actually say about the other 76%? These stats seem to suggest only a minority felt comfortably prepared and ready for the golden years, and it's painful.
I like the reference to the golden years because it's going to take some financial gold to get you there and keep you in the retirement lifestyle you expect and are accustomed to.
Oh, so true. Well, it's definitely a reality that there are sizable concerns to overcome before retirement becomes the best years of your life. So can you share what you know to be some of your clients' biggest fears?
Well, the anticipated pressure on government benefits, and this one just won't go away, that governments are going to fall short in their ability to provide a retirement income. Another concern, fewer companies are offering company pension plans. And while 65 has been the benchmark for retirement, the average age for retirement has been dropping, putting more pressure on retirement resources and lifestyle choices.
Well, Jim, what is the actual average retirement age for Canadians these days? You're saying it's changed.
It's between 60 and 61 and is continuing to fall. Looks like collectively we all desire to retire early and enjoy the best days of our lives. But we're also wrestling with what's going on in the lives of our kids with their mixed jobs and increasingly difficult means of getting ahead financially. And this weighs heavily on many parents' minds and impacts their retirement planning.
Well, it's simply people need better information to make better financial choices.
It's unfortunate. There's also a troubling lack of investment knowledge, with 1 in 4 saying they were clueless about their investment options. Only 36% say they're at least somewhat knowledgeable about what type of investments they should consider to maximize their retirement savings.
Well, it sounds like a job for a financial planner to come to the rescue. Do you know any good ones? Just kidding. We do want people to do better financially, Jim, and that's one of the reasons you're here. So what's the easiest way that someone can reach you?
They can give me a call. I'm at 604-682-5431, and I'm happy to help. These stats from this study suggest only a minority of Canadians feel the need to consult a financial advisor to help them plan. Maybe as an industry, we have a little bit of an image problem. It's not just investment advice that people need, but also help planning for long-term goals or addressing the important life events such as an inheritance, retirement, job loss, divorce, or the loss of a partner.
Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to think that you help to inspire people to make the best of what they have and for them to be able to see that they have a lot of choices. The fact that people are not fully engaged in their own personal planning process, could this indicate that there's a small crisis in confidence?
I think I'd agree. There's a significant disconnect between what folks expect for retirement income and what they have saved for retirement. Now, according to a 2015 BlackRock study, they expect an annual income of about $49,600 for 25 years. But on average, they've only saved about $70,700 in total.
Wow. $70,700, that's it? That looks like it would barely fund 18 months of retirement.
In this study, pre-retirees between 55 and 64 had done a little better, saving around $125,000. Still not likely enough, even if properly invested. What compounds the problem is that a whopping 60% of the typical portfolio is being held in cash. Far too much to meet most retirement needs when you factor in record low interest rates and inflation.
Well, I suspect fear might be a motivator here, but why do you think people are holding on to so much cash?
Well, could be skepticism about the stock market. They're anxious about losing money, and people don't feel they understand their options. It's clear to me there's a real need to help enhance financial literacy and investor education.
Well, I understand, Jim, that when markets are uncertain, there can be less of an appetite to even look at or even face some planning choices that may need to be addressed over time. But in the meantime, do investors seek out more stable investments when they're anxious?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And they may have good reasons to be concerned. Many retirees move their money into stable investments such as bonds, and while they believe that they're safe, they offer little in the way of interest. Gone are the days of double-digit interest rates, but pursuing higher yield comes with additional risks.
Investors have to be extremely cautious in today's world. There's no room for mistakes.
Term deposits and GICs are offering even less than they did a year ago. I saw one of the banks offering a 5-year term deposit paying 1.8%. 1.8? Okay.
I know. It's crazy.
If you need to access your capital, then a cashable GIC may be an option, but be prepared to earn even less interest.
It must be super uncomfortable for many of our listeners who are relying mostly on GICs or term deposits to support their standard of living. I just don't see how it can be done. If you're just joining us now, I'd like to remind you that we're talking about planning for your retirement and being paranoid about running out of money. That's today's topic. In more detail, we're actually speaking to how bond and GIC return expectations are low, creating a lot of extra pressure to pursue higher yields. But at what cost?
One area of concern I'd like to point out is based around how much can you safely withdraw from your retirement accounts and not exhaust your portfolio. It places more attention on how retirees manage their RSPs, their RIFs, and their tax-free savings accounts.
The TFSAs, the tax-free savings accounts. We've all heard about them. Some of us have them, but how do they actually fit into retirement planning?
Joanne, in my opinion, too many Canadians treat their tax-free savings accounts as a temporary savings account, instead of making a bedrock of a tax-free retirement income. On average, TFSA balances are becoming substantial, and they should be earning a reasonable return. Did you know that about 57% are currently sitting in cash?
Well, if we've already established that cash doesn't pay very much. So if people want to retire earlier, doesn't that mean they have fewer years to build that retirement nest egg and more years to spend it?
Beautiful. Okay. And you raise a great point. Longevity and estate planning should also play a role in these considerations. A safe withdrawal rate for someone whose relatives live into their 70s would be very different than someone who, say, their family members routinely make it to 100.
So what would you say to someone who's listening right now to this program and they feel that they should consider reviewing their withdrawal rate?
Well, to help figure out your correct withdrawal rate, we consider revisiting your budget and reviewing your investments. This is what I love to do as a planner. We can explore possible planning scenarios for making the best outcomes using a written financial plan. And it's one of the big differences between myself and your typical investment advisor.
Well, I think this would be a good time to remind our listeners about the importance of the 3 T's, which we talk about every single program, and they apply to both investing and estate planning. So number 1 would be time to do the research and anticipate the tax consequences. Then we have technique, knowing what you're doing, be prepared, be educated, and temperament. It's all about the emotional control.
Mastery of these 3 elements is so essential to ensure that you're not leaving financial blind spots unaddressed. And if you're unsure about your situation, I'd like to encourage you to give me a call.
To get the most out of your financial circumstances, you can try and do it yourself, or you could work with a professional, and that's where Jim comes into play. Give him a call at 604-682-5431. And remember, to get the best results, you need to keep a cool head, and you need to think clearly.
I'm surprised when I meet with people for the first time. They're often anxious. They tell me they weren't aware of all of their options, and they wish they'd come to see me somewhat earlier. Much of our conversations are not focused just on the investments, but how they want their money to help them accomplish what's most important to them.
So what I'm hearing, Jim, is it's really beneficial to have a relationship with your advisor, spending time to look at the why of your financial picture, and then looking at the how you can actually do it, and then what you can use to make it happen. So what's one additional step that people could take to improve their financial picture?
Plan ahead. Give me a call and let's talk how we can make a plan work for you. You can reach me at 604-682-5431. And again, I'm happy to help. Your plan should show where you are today and plot the required course to achieve your retirement dreams.
So, Jim, in your capacity as a financial planner, I'm sure you have to bring up some unpopular recommendations, especially when it requires spending less.
Sometimes. I once had a client who refused to curtail her spending, saying she wanted to live for today and not save for a retirement that she might never see. It was an excuse to justify her spending, and I told her that retirement will almost certainly come for her, whether she's ready or not.
Right, this just in.
Clients who are about to retire must prepare for a series of life-changing adjustments as they shift to a new daily routine and the financial reality of living on their accumulated wealth.
As a financial planner, it's you who helps them prepare for these changes as their retirement date approaches.
The process starts with a discussion about how they envision their retirement. And it's important to be clear about the costs of their desired lifestyle. Even relatively well-off retirees have to watch their spending when they retire.
Well, then what's a tangible that you can actually help them see?
Well, I actually have 4.
Okay.
The first one is if they if they have a wish list for their treats, such as a lifetime trip or indulgences, etc. We might want a separate fund to facilitate this spending fund, separate from all of their other accounts.
Mm-hmm. And then what's next?
Secondly, we will want to identify all their sources of income from company pension plans, personal savings, investments, RSPs, CPP and old age security, and note when income from these sources will come into play.
And thirdly?
Account for the various stages of aging. You're not going to be spending and acting the same way throughout your retirement. And last but not least, anticipate the loss of employee benefits. Coverage for dental and prescription medication can be substantial.
Well, that 4th point that you made is definitely a good one. I don't think many of us have employee benefit coverage on our minds when we're anticipating retirement. And I know from experience it can be extremely costly.
In some cases, you can purchase extended benefits through your employer's insurance provider. Some, however, require that you do so within 30 days of your retirement, something that can easily get overlooked in all the excitement of retiring.
Thanks for bringing these points forward, Jim, because it can be uncomfortable or even embarrassing when you feel like you don't understand things or you don't feel like you're in control of managing elements of your day-to-day life, like finances.
People often ask me about the starting points of thoughtful investing. By far, the one I like to suggest that has the most impact is goal setting. Setting realistic goals and expectations requires a few things to make investing work well for you.
Well, the benefits of investing are made clear in success story after success story of how you help people take charge of their financial lives.
With our help, I'd like to suggest that the stock market and the greater financial world won't seem so complicated once you learn some of the lingo and the major concepts. You can take the first step towards creating your investing plan by asking yourself a simple question. What do you want to accomplish? This is the most important step towards ensuring that your investment plan has a solid, sound foundation.
So what I'm hearing, Jim, is that these goals are the reason you're launching a personal investment plan. What happens if and when you lose sight of those goals? How do you stay on track?
If your goals are not clear, it can be easy to deviate from your purpose. To substantially increase the likelihood of your goals being achieved, write them down and review them regularly.
I don't know how many times you need to tell us that. Write them down, a written financial plan. This is also a great time to offer up your number. You can call Jim, 604-682-5431. When markets are unsettled, it can be hard to keep your planning perspective in mind, and even harder still to stick with a good plan. A second opinion might help determine if any changes need to be made. This is Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton in the studio today speaking with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group. If you've been putting off getting your financial house in order, this is definitely the time to finally do something about it. And you can learn how Jim can help. All you have to do is call him, 604-682-5431, or send him an email, jim.doyle@investorsgroup.com. Now, we've talked about it before, gray divorce or being suddenly single. Jim tackles these topics next on Boomer Life on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.